Over the last 20 years, it's been pretty crazy to see how far gaming in the palm of your hands has come. Starting out from my very first Game Boy Advance when I was a kid and getting all excited about the prospect of playing Super Mario Bros. 2 in such a tiny form factor, and now being able to play full AAA releases like Forza Horizon 5 in like a much bigger but still portable form factor, like that's pretty crazy. It had me consider what my favorite handhelds of all time have been over the last 20 years. And my favorites really come down to two main things. The first being how comfortable it is, like how comfortable it is in the hands, the screen size relative to the overall size, the overall feel of the controls, of the thumbsticks and the D-pad and the buttons and the grip. And then the second thing being the library. What are you actually playing on it? What are you playing on these devices? Does the library have games you actually really want to play? Or is it primarily like interesting titles that maybe you want to play some time down the line, or maybe you have some interest in, but you're not exactly jumping at the opportunity to play these games? Now, you can probably already tell by the thumbnail that I don't have any Nintendo handhelds as my personal favorites. I've owned a Game Boy as a kid and a Game Boy Advance and even a Nintendo Switch. And when my sister was a kid, she had a DS as well, and I played some of that. And they're all fantastic handhelds. The Switch is probably going to end up overtaking the PS2 as the best-selling console ever, like of all time. And I think it's for good reason. Very few consoles can be that affordable with that strong of a library while also being a hybrid device. A device that you can either dock on your TV and play on the couch, or disconnect and just play in a different room or in an airplane or something like that. But it really comes down to the library. When I first had interest in a Switch, I was going on a flight and I borrowed a Switch from my best friend because he had Breath of the Wild. And after I played that on the plane for the entire flight, I think it was like 5 hours, I came back from that flight thinking, I gotta get the Switch. I gotta play Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild was the console seller for me, and easily one of the best games I've ever played. And after I beat that game, I ended up beating Monster Hunter Rise, and then I never picked up that thing again. That thing started to collect dust. Like, I got other games like Green Hell, which is like a survival game that ran like total garbage on the Switch, and a few other third-party titles, like miscellaneous titles that just didn't run that well. And that's when it got me thinking, I really want a device like this that plays a different library, mainly the PC library. And my interest in the PC library really began when I got an Xbox when I was a kid, when I was about 15 years old, and my mom got me Xbox Live. I was playing Halo 2 Xbox Live in like 2005, and that really started to change my interest in genres of games. Like, I began having more interest in multiplayer titles, AAA titles, and more mature titles. So I moved away from Nintendo, and that's really the main reason why I don't have any Nintendo handhelds as like my favorites, because I haven't really spent that much time with them, especially as I got older. My tastes changed over time. That leads me to the first handheld on this list, the PlayStation Portable. I still have the sleeve. Okay, this isn't my original PSP. I got this on eBay for maybe like 50 or 60 bucks, mainly because I wanted to use this disk drive. These days, my PSP acts more like a UMD disk drive. I can dump my games and then play it on something like the Steam Deck and emulate it. But before that was the thing, this is where it all started, right on this device. 2004, my uncle got me this as a surprise randomly, and this became like my favorite thing for a long time. I don't really know what more about the PSP can be said that has not been said already. I still remember having like 10 songs on this thing to listen to over and over, and popping in Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories and thinking, this feels just like Grand Theft Auto 3. The quality really isn't that much different. Then popping that game out and putting in SOCOM Fireteam Bravo 2, and then playing both these games in class with my other friends who had a PSP. We would like sit under the desk, you know, we'd like be like this, like in our desk, our hands underneath the desk where the teacher can't see you, and we just be playing fucking LAN parties on GTA 3, just killing each other with RPGs, and then doing some PvP stuff in SOCOM too. It was crazy for its time that you can play games like that in that fashion, like wirelessly. It was crazy for its time. The PSP was essentially a portable PS2. You probably hear that a lot from other people on YouTube talking about this thing. I never really felt like the games were all that different from PS2 games in terms of quality and feel. They felt so similar and blew my mind at that time. If you played Grand Theft Auto 3 on the PS2, then jumped over to this and played GTA Liberty City Stories, they felt like the same game. It was crazy. And in many ways, they are the same game. But it was nuts to have that quality in such a tiny device. It was the same thing for games like Vice City and then coming over on the PSP, playing Vice City Stories. And even all these years later, I'm finding all these incredible games that came out on this thing, like Phantasy Star Portable 2, never played that back in the day. And the games on the PSP still amaze me to this day. But these days, I treat my PSP more as, again, a device to dump my PSP games so I can instead emulate them on the Steam Deck because of things like 60 FPS hacks and going from a 4:3 aspect ratio to a 16:9. You know, my eyes are not the best as I've gotten older, so having such a tiny screen is kind of hard to play games on these days, so I just prefer to play on something bigger like a Steam Deck. And also the OLED on that thing is just really makes those games stand out. Not to mention things like dual thumbstick support for games that did not initially have that, like for Grand Theft Auto, and for games like SOCOM Fireteam Bravo. Like, that's a pretty difficult game these days to play on one thumbstick, as great as that game is. So this acts more as a device to really dump the games and then put them onto the Steam Deck. Now, all that being said, because of how compact this thing is, there's some specific use cases that I'll probably dabble with at some point that I can use this for. So to give an example, Gran Turismo on the PSP, that's a game I don't really want to play on the Steam Deck because I already have games like Forza Horizon 5 and emulate bigger games like Gran Turismo 4 on PS2. And Gran Turismo on the PSP is more of like an exhibition racer. Like, you do exhibition races and then you collect cars. It's more of like a car collecting game than it is a full-on sim racing kind of game. And I think this device fits the PSP version more than like a Steam Deck. Because this device, because of how small it is and how you can fit it in a pocket, at any time I can just pull this thing out and just do a couple of exhibition races on the PSP version of Gran Turismo, and then collect a few cars after like 20 minutes, and then put it away. Like, it's that game fits this form factor more than like a Steam Deck. Anyway, the PSP, it's a goated handheld, has some of the best games ever made on this thing. What more needs to be said about this amazing device that really kicked off my interest in this kind of gaming, having like quality games in this form factor? It all started right here. This all leads me to my next favorite handheld ever. This has got to be number one at this point. My number one choice of all time, the Steam Deck. This device is the reason I even started this YouTube channel, because I have so much to say about this incredible device. This device in so many ways is like the ultimate evolution of the PSP, minus the portable form factor, obviously. This thing is a lot bigger. It plays just about everything in my Steam library. I can use it like a normal computer if I want to go on YouTube or just browse the web, or maybe I want to put on like a PDF file for something I have to study. Like, this thing can do everything. The controls are so good on this thing that I often, even when I'm home in front of my gaming PC, I'll remote into my PC from my Steam Deck while playing on my like main TV. And I'll just have this in my lap as a main controller, because the back buttons and the trackpads, because you can assign them to so many different things, I often default to this. Whenever I'm playing a controller game on my main PC, I'll just have this in my lap and just play on my big screen like that. All the buttons feel fantastic. The screen is incredible on the OLED model. Even the LCD model is pretty decent. The Steam OS is just goated software. And it's super affordable from as low as like $320 if you can get the LCD model refurbished on sale. It's pretty hard to get that because they sell out pretty quickly, but if you can get that, it's such a steal at $320. And then emulation on this thing, I'm not like the biggest retro guy, but when I do want to play an older game like a PSP game or a PS2 game, this thing just runs everything like a dream, and it looks great doing so. This thing is so good. It got my youngest sister into PC gaming. She originally, like me, had a Switch and then rarely played it because she just didn't really have a big interest in the Switch library. So then when Valve announced that, when they started to announce pre-orders, I pre-ordered 2 of those things for me and her. And ever since then, she's been a PC gamer. I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't for the Steam Deck, for how versatile it is. It can play pretty much anything. With how affordable it was, I was able to get one for me and my sister, and all the great memories we've made with the games on this thing, like State of Decay 2 playing co-op. Like, I have very fond memories of being in my dad's house. My sister's got the deck hooked up to the TV. I'm on the couch playing co-op, and my other sister's boyfriend also has a deck, and he was playing co-op with us on the same couch. 3-player co-op, LAN party. That just would not have happened if it weren't for this device. It makes LAN parties like that with your friends and family, like with the PC library. I don't think that's really talked about enough. Like, you hear people talk about the PC library on the go, but it brings people together along with the PC library. You know, when you're playing a lot of Switch games, a lot of these split screen kind of games you play in co-op games, they're a certain type of game, like Mario Party, or like maybe like a co-op RPG or something like that. But with the deck, you know, you can play pretty much anything on PC. And so it brings, like, you just have way more options to play with other people. And it's why, for me, this is just the go-to device. And not to mention, this thing is fantastic for airplane rides or those long train rides when you're going out of state, or delays at the airport. You just turn this thing on, you know, you have it in a bag with you, just pull it out, you take it off sleep from whatever your last gaming session was, and you just keep playing for how many hours you gotta be at the airport. This thing is perfect for scenarios like that. And the last thing I'll say about this is how well this pairs with a gaming PC. I love using this thing with Moonshine installed on here and then Apollo on my PC to then pair it and play to my gaming PC from anywhere in the world right off this device. And when I want like a high frame rate experience for something like Forza Horizon 5, if I want like a 90 FPS experience, that's where I'll remote in. And you know, the latency is so good. It's something like Apollo and Moonshine. It's a fantastic experience that I don't think I'll get anywhere else. I know there's a lot of competition now, and you could argue some of those competitors provide a better value at this price point now, like the Legion Go S. That seems to be like the go-to if you can get it on sale. But I still think this holds up pretty well to this day, and it's something you really can't go wrong with. This is like the tried and true PC handheld, and for me, it is my favorite ever. It's the #1 device. Last but not least, and this might confuse some of you guys, but I love the PlayStation Portal. Now, I'm not just a PC guy. I still love my PlayStation 5, and I love the PlayStation ecosystem. I love playing things on PlayStation. Like, PS Plus, I think, is still a pretty good value for what it provides, especially if you can get those holiday deals every year that they do. You can get those subscriptions for much lower, usually 30% lower. I got my PS Plus premium subscription for the whole year for like $107. It's around $9 a month. And I've just built a large library of games since I got a PS4 back in like 2017 or 2018, around there. From that point, I picked up a lot of games that I just don't want to go to waste. And this generation with the PS5, there's a lot of upgrades for a lot of PS4 games from that generation that bring a lot of those games to 60 FPS and higher resolution, some even past 1080p. Like The Last of Us 2, you can just play at 1440p, 60 FPS. You can even unlock the frame rate and you can go further. I've got an OLED TV with things like variable refresh rates to really push that frame rate as far as it can go. So it's pretty nice to have like a device that plays my PS4 games just upgraded, and I don't want all that to go to waste. I love PlayStation, and because the Steam Deck got me back into the handheld space, the PS Portal always caught my attention. This thing has had like a troublesome launch. It started off as just a local remote play device. I think you were even able to do that on the PSP back in the day if you had like a PSP and a PS3. So local remote play is not like a new thing. So when this thing launched, it was pretty disappointing that it basically did the same thing a PSP did back in the day, or maybe it was the PS Vita. I not too sure. But over the course of its lifespan, this thing has gotten some pretty significant updates. I would say today it's a totally different device from when it came out. Now you can remote play into your PlayStation from anywhere in the world, and technically you don't even need a PS5 anymore. If you get the highest tier subscription, and again, that's the highest tier. It's not exactly a cheap subscription. $107 for the whole year. That's still $107. But if you do get that, you don't even need a PS5 anymore. You can now play anything on the Plus category just by streaming it from the cloud. And any game that you see on the PlayStation Store, or at least almost any game, you can buy and just stream from the cloud as well. So that's a combination of your own library plus the PS Plus catalog that's already there for you to play. You can stream all that from the cloud now. You don't need to buy a PS5. It's also a really good way to play classic PlayStation games. That may not sound like a big deal at first, but consider like the original Resident Evil games, for example. They can go for quite a bit of money on eBay. I was looking at these games to emulate on my Steam Deck, and I saw the prices for these games, and I was like, I don't want to pay that. I just don't, because those games have remakes. I just want to play the originals just once to see what they're like. And now I have that option through the PS Portal because I can play it through the cloud on this device in the palm of my hands. This classic list is also increasing as time goes on. I think it's every month they add a couple of games, and they even add PSP games like Killzone Liberation. I don't think I've ever would have played that game if it weren't for adding that game on PS Plus. That game just runs at an upscale resolution at 60 FPS through the PlayStation subscription, and it's just so cool to have that just to stream on the PS Portal. I don't have to do anything. I just hit a button and I'm right into the game. Or if I want to play Tekken 3, a little bit of arcade mode, like you get the idea. It's really cool to have classics at the press of a button. You can just boot into them and play them right away. Now you still may be thinking, all right, bro, this is just like a DualSense controller with a screen in the middle. Is it even really a handheld? And you're right, this thing does not play anything native. This is basically just a remote play device. All true. But I would still say yes, because this controller is a fully functional DualSense. It's got all the haptic feedback that you expect from a regular DualSense, and all the little effects that go into the DualSense. Like if you're running away from the cops in Grand Theft Auto 5, like you'll see it flash on this device. Like it's really cool to have all those features, like the Sony experience in like a handheld format. And with the haptic feedback, you can get things like rumbling in the grips if you're taking off a flight, if you're playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example. And keep in mind, you can usually find these things for a lot cheaper than you used to. It normally goes for around 140 bucks used on eBay. And when I say used, it's like the box was open and the device was pulled out. A lot of those listings, this thing wasn't even really used. I got this for 120 bucks through the eBay refurbished seller. So this is directly from eBay refurbished, and you get a 1-year warranty. When you consider that the DualSense controller is already like 70 to 80 bucks, it's actually a pretty good deal with the screen, because you basically get that DualSense with the screen and you have all the functionality of the Portal. The main drawback with this device is honestly still the latency. It's gotten a lot better since this thing came out, but I would say it's still not quite low enough for things like multiplayer games. Found it for 120 bucks. I don't regret it. And I actually play on this thing quite a bit. Way more than I thought I would because of the DualSense experience. I really think that Sony nails the experience of playing on PlayStation. And I think it is something to hold a candle to. This thing just works, easily connects to your PlayStation. Sometimes I have to put it on airplane mode and then take it off again so I can reset the Wi-Fi settings. So sometimes it can't immediately connect to my PS5. Other than that, this thing just works. I don't have to worry about any connection issues. The only thing again is that latency. It's not quite up to par just yet, but I don't really play multiplayer games on this thing anyway. This is primarily to play my single player titles in my PlayStation library, or to like drive a taxi around in GTA Online, or my horse around in Red Dead Online. It's not gonna be for everyone, but I love the DualSense experience so much, and having that experience on the go or like in bed, on the couch, anywhere I have stable connection, it's my preferred way to play through my PlayStation library. And it's why I have it as one of my favorite handhelds ever, because it's all I really wanted it to do. I didn't really want like another native device. I had the Steam Deck for that. This as like a handheld companion to my PlayStation, but it could also act as a standalone device, like not native standalone, but you could get this device, get a subscription, and just play the entire PlayStation library. At least mostly. At the time of this recording, they're adding more and more games as time goes on, but they're gonna get pretty close to having just everything in the library able to stream off the cloud. That's gonna be a pretty cool day. I do think cloud gaming is gonna be huge in the future. I think it's already getting pretty big, and At this price point, again, if you can get it, like it's $200 if you get it brand new, but because you can get used ones so easily for 140 bucks usually, I think that's a really good price point for what you're gonna get here. Not to mention, GTA 6 on this thing is gonna be pretty dope next year. Those are all my favorite handhelds of all time. What are your favorites? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.